Hey traders, Raghee here. Welcome to Charts and Coffee. Great to see everybody. All right, happy Tuesday, everybody. October has thus far not disappointed. We've had definitely that Halloween kind of market. You know, somebody asked me what's the difference between 5% and 10% to the downside. And I said, 5% is considered mostly a dip. While if you go to that 10% level, it's a correction. And then by 20, this is when the markets in turmoil specials start up on financial media. So, the psychology between 5 to 25, 10 to 20, those are things to watch out for, whether or not they seem absolutely arbitrary, hint they are, and whether or not they seem to necessarily make sense for the broader markets. We need to remember that there are a large number of not necessarily broader markets or sectors, but there are a number of individual stocks who have seen that 10%. So the question then becomes is, have we seen enough selling yet? As they say, capitulation, right? We use the $27 word. I don't know that that's the case, but let me say something because I know this is always going to be the most difficult type of market for me. And it's no different than running an obstacle course. You as a trader out there are certain obstacles that some traders do great in. And they can get through that obstacle no problem. There are other obstacles that are very, very difficult. If you're a trend trader, which is what I've done for most of my career, because as a young trader, reading the books that we had access to in the late 80s, early 90s, I realized that a lot of the great traders out there, they were trend traders. They looked at the trend and said, hey, I'll just surf that wave. Hence the wave, right? That's why I call the wave the wave. But when the wave is no longer moving forward and it doesn't have the organization and it's not quite rideable, now we're going into that transition. Not necessarily just chop, but transition to what? Right? So transition now means I've got to, and choppy markets are tradable, by the way. Trends are tradable and chop is tradable, but it's in between that you just want to pull your hair out. I don't think this particular in between is necessarily good for broader market, for a large group of participants. Most people don't love transitional markets. They'll trade chop, they'll trade a trend, but that area in between until we have the definition of what the range high and range low is in chop is actually difficult. So I think it's really important to say, yes, some market behaviors are really, really tough to trade. So that's what I wanted to open with here, not to disappoint or put fear in anybody, just to say, look, this is hard. And I've been doing this a really long time. And these environments are always difficult. So how do we manage it? I'll trade less. I'll risk less. So my position size will be less. My trade frequency will be less. Instead of maybe 3 to 5 ideas a week, I might have 1 to 2. Instead of risking my typical paper cut percentage, it might be 2/3, maybe 1/2 of that. So that means my position size is also moderated as well. So think about how you can do some of those things, in your own trading, and how are you identifying transitional markets? And so we're in transition right now. We don't have chop set because we don't know where the floor is. We don't have a trend anymore either. So until this is set, be cautious. All right. I don't want to see anybody lose their shirts and get disheartened as we go through 2021, because 2021, I got to tell you, I think it has been a pretty good year. It's not been 2020, but 2020 is an anomaly of a year. 2021's been actually pretty darn tradable. So I don't want to end 2021 on a sour note by persisting and using approaches that worked in one section of the year, but won't now. Macroeconomically, we've got a different message from the FOMC, and the trends are succumbing to unforeseen things like Evergrande. and also foreseeing things like the shift in the policy from the Federal Reserve. All right, so that's where my head is at right now, and great to see you all. Let's jump into the questions. Hey there, Daniel. Just got the day trading course. Loving the content. Daniel, thank you so much. And that just reminds me that all of us can, and arguably should, be able to manage multiple durations. There's 3 durations for me. There's that short term, few days to a few weeks. There's a little bit more intermediate, minimum 6 months. And then I'll even go further out, that very long duration. That's my investing portfolio. And then each one has a kind of a related interval. So the setting on your chart to the expectation of how long you could be in the trade. And day trading is just a really nimble way to say, I don't care what happens tomorrow. Heck, for what I teach in the class, Daniel, I don't even really care what happens after 11:30 noon Eastern. So I'll look at the first 2 hours a day looking for opportunity. And that's a great transition. So there's 2 things happening right now. While I'm waiting for the transition to set, I can day trade. And once a transition is set, we can hop back into those longer term markets. So I divide my day up into looking for opportunities between 9:30 and 11:30, and then I'll look again the second half of the day. And the second half of the day, that's where I start to build my watch list, 3 kinds of watch lists. That's where I start to look at the daily time frame. That's where I lean very heavily on what ETFs can tell me about the individual sectors and the individual stocks that might still have clarity and opportunity. So, by the way, that's what we're going to talk about on Wednesday. So, Daniel, I'm so pleased to hear that. That is awesome. I think you're going to find that shorter term interval and that more nimble approach is going to serve you, not just if you want to day trade, but you're going to find a wonderful byproduct of being a day trader is you understand flow and order entry in a really great, clear, acute way. And then all of a sudden, you're going to find your longer term positioning is going to benefit from your day trader's eye, which is really, really cool. It's going to help your order entry, right? XLC. Hey there, Michael. XLC, again, it's going to suffer a lot of what we're seeing in the QQQ or the NQ. And that is, we're just waiting to see where the floor is going to be. Now, you might say, well, Rog, and I get this question quite a bit, and I get it. When will I start? When will you start to short? So let's flip that question around. Why did I buy for so long? And we have our list of things at the grab candle level. We have our clarity at the JT multi-trend level. You can add in all the things like propulsion dots and Darvis and all these automated tools that I rely on to just read the market environment. Well, just like I have the uptrend, well, I have requirements for downtrends. And one of the things that I've been getting questions about is, we hear a lot of legends of trading say, look, and I mean anyone from any of the market wizards, new or the original, right? And they'll talk about how they'll make money at market turns. And then I think we as retail traders go, well, clearly they're trying to identify this. They're actually not. If you study, and I have, because back when I started trading, there wasn't this community, this huge, wonderful, varied niche community, where you could find the style, the asset class, the mentor you wanted. Back then, it was a handful of books, most of which were hard to find and rather expensive, rare seminars, which again were pretty pricey. But we had things like Market Wizards. We had things like interviews in some of the magazines, and these traders would talk about their trades. And the thing that I realized is they weren't looking for the turn. It sounds that way in the jargon, right? But what they were actually looking for is floors to break. They knew not where the ceiling was, because newsflash, nobody knows where that is. It's called top picking, right? Some traders, however, have the ability to withstand the elasticity of that top forming for long enough that when it finally does fatigue, and of course we know it will, but who knows when, but when it finally does fatigue, they can take that roller coaster ride down. But imagine heading up the roller coaster and you don't know when you reach the top and it just rolls over, right? You just got to sit there really slow as it just kind of I mean, I imagine the anticipation alone would increase your blood pressure. Um, so what I realized is they weren't doing that. They weren't picking a top, or some of them were. I mean, probably the most famous is the story from The Big Short. Michael Burry picked the top, but think about how long he had to wait till he was right. A lot of people couldn't withstand that high waiting to be made. The greats wait for the floor to give out. The greats wait for the Charlie Brown and Lucy moment of the football being pulled away. In other words, they know where the floor is, and they can identify where that floor has given out. And then they know, oh, okay, now we can short. This is what they're looking for, right? So keep that in mind. Don't jump the gun on the shorts because you read somewhere that the greats trade the turns. It's not what you think when you really look at the way that they've done it. So why do I go into that with XLC? I can't do anything until I either have the range set, which we might see if I can get an inside day minor low. I look at the previous Darvis. I mean, look at this Darvis. This is sitting there automated, ready to go. Pretty interesting. It's in play, not perfectly, but it's pretty darn accurate. So if now at a Darvis support I can get a minor low inside day, maybe that's ultimately going to be what I can see as a near-term floor for this distribution market trend that we seem to be segueing into. All right. So whether that's XLC or whether that's anything you're dealing with right now, we have to be cognizant of this is not set distribution. This is no longer an uptrend. It's in transition. Transitional markets are the worst. Yes, some people might be doing well within it, but generally speaking, when you look at your growing P&L, and when I look at my P&L for this year, which is pretty darn okay compared to 2020, it's been a good year. But it's not been because this market's been in constant flux in this transition. It's because we've had moments of clear distribution. Think the Russell for most of the year, beautiful distribution, or we've had trends, to William's point, like natty gas. And when I'm taking paper cuts varying from about 3 to 5%, and I'm taking some paper cuts, transitions are no fun. But then I've got trends like crude oil. I've got trends like this natural gas trade. Earlier this year, we had trends in copper. It's the trends that then are these exponential winners. This is somewhere along the lines of 7x. So when I've got my paper cut, I take that loss, and maybe I've done it 3-4 times. It's not fun. It's anywhere from 9 at the low end to upwards to maybe almost 15 to 20%. That can be the flux when you run into these transitional periods. So you go, oh, wait a minute, we're not trending anymore and the dips aren't holding. But by the way, as much as dips will be maligned over the next few weeks, dip buyers have slayed the market through most of the year. So even though they say, oh, how about that dip buying last week? I say, yeah, I took a small hit, but last 4 or 5 months have been great, So don't let that sort of mocking of the dip buying get you down. It works. And by the way, natty gas, arguably 3 dip buys here. And this is what well-structured uptrends can do. And these trades are so important because without these, a trend trader is kind of, screwed. Because without the trend that we can just ride like a good surfer, the small paper cuts start to outweigh the winners. And we've got to be able to equally cut the losses quickly, without significant damage to our account. And then we've got to be able to balance out the winners and just not micromanage them. I see so many traders just manage their way right out of a great position like this. I'm still in natural gas. I'll be riding this until I've got to get out because the options are we're getting ready to expire. So yeah, absolutely, William. I wish I bought more. Now, there will be more trends. There always are. There'll be another trend. We'll just have to find it. We'll have to wait. And when it happens, the lessons learned from missing certain piece of natty gas, you'll say, wait a minute, next time I do this, maybe I'll grab more contracts at the initial entry where the risk is lowest. And I won't be in such a rush to scale out or whatever in the studies of your journals and your trades and your trailing stops and so forth, your targets, whatever in that study that you've realized. Look, and I think you make a great point indirectly, William, and thank you for it. Um, exits matter. Exits matter big time. I have a section of about, I think Trish put together a section because she's always listening to the conversations and the sort of tough things that we all deal with as traders that you guys deal with. And one of the challenges is the exits, right? I mean, entries are great. And I think we're usually a little bit predisposed to the next indicator or the next entry when in reality, we keep from blowing up our accounts based on well-positioned exits. We pay ourselves. We're able to ride trends based on proper trade management. That's exits. So I've got about 4 or 5 slides dedicated to the topic of exits, and that's going to be a really big emphasis in the next class, which is, all right, entries are pretty automated by my tools at this point, but what about trade management? What about exits? Not just stop losses, but targets. How do you ride a trade like natural gas? We don't know that natural gas or UNG is going to do this. How do we manage that? And that's based on exits. Is it a turnaround Tuesday? If we're going to see this, Tina, it's going to happen because we get a squat bodied candle. And we seem to be seeing something like that right now on the S&P. I mean, that's what I need. I need today to be just really almost chill, boring, narrow range, where the bulls and bears have just sort of found an equilibrium. And if we have that, we have a chance to say, not that we're going to move higher. To me, a turnaround Tuesday would suffice if it's just a pause inside day minor low. So thank you for the question. I was curious about AJM asks, I was curious about the up, down, green arrows on with the candle. Oh, so you're talking about these? These are the signals that come along with the Darvis. Now, I do want to mention, they will replot until they're set. So when I get a lower low, when I get a minor low, it'll show. And then that helps us determine resistance level breakouts. So like that. Yeah. And then here. So don't think they show up and tell the future. I hate when we think that any indicator knows what the turning points are. But we are looking for the patterns that would precede it. Think of it this way. You're looking for patterns that precede turning points, and that's what that signal does. And it's part of the Darvis 3.0, AJM. And by the way, I'm pretty sure that Trish has made sure that that indicator is part of the upcoming class. So there is an indicator bundle that comes with every single package from basic to the elite, and it will be included in that. All right. So thanks for the question. Let's see. William says the difference between a $10 haircut and a $20 haircut is about 2 weeks. Another thing, investing as far as getting out too early. Look, this is what I will say. And I feel you. I've done that too. Again, the only thing we know about the markets is that we don't know where they're going to go, but we should know what we want to do when it gets there. It's akin to being a batter at the plate. And I don't know that you guys can see my baseball bat on the bookshelf there. I'm a batter at the plate, and all I know is the pitcher is going to throw a ball. I don't know what it's going to be, the speed, what kind of pitch it's going to be. All I know as a batter, if I'm a good batter, is what I know I can hit with high probability. That's the paradigm shift. I'm not trying to necessarily predict, although there's patterns, right? No different than trading. There's patterns that the pitcher may have, but I really don't know with certainty what is going to be thrown my way. I can only react based upon what I recognize coming my way. And if traders can make that switch, it's going to make life a whole lot easier. That's something that my mentor taught me early on. You don't know what's going to happen, Rog, and you never will. But that's okay, because that's not your game. And he would use a boxing analogy, which was fine with me. I love I love boxing. And he said, look, you want to be a counterpuncher. You want to be a counterpuncher. You're not looking to knock anybody out. You want to be a counterpuncher. And I thought, that makes sense. I can do that. All right, gang. So as always, thanks for being a part of Charts and Coffee. I will see you all tomorrow, same time, same station. And remember, if you haven't already registered, simplertrading.com/trend. That's my upcoming webinar. We've got the class on the 16th. Looking forward to seeing you at the webinars so you can see what we're doing, see the challenges this market presents, and how we can better deal with it. All right. Not an ideal market, but if you can survive this time without severely blowing up your account or sort of messing up your trader mind, you're going to be able to take advantage of that next move. And that's what's so important, right? In an environment like this, capital preservation, so being very selective, managing trades really well. All right. Be good to each other. I'll talk with you soon.